Hey everybody, it's Candy, aka Brown Eyed Girl 69. How y'all doing today? Well, today is Saturday, May 10th of 2025. And pretty much just gonna sit here and smoke and talk about a couple of things, but I have a couple of questions. Like I always ask myself, why do I allow things to trigger me? Like Christianity. That's a good example. Why does what other people believe and think um affect me? Um like for instance, okay, I was raised in a church from the time I was a baby until I was 27 years old. I came out of the church when I was 27. At the age of 40, I had um another experience, so to speak, that kind of pushed me back towards the church for a very short period of time. I didn't get religious or anything, but I was basically researching a whole bunch of different religious topics. I was researching, the Trinity versus non Trinitarian. I was researching uh, Protestantism versus Catholicism. I was researching, um, what do they call that? Calvinism, which Calvinism believes that you're pre-chosen before birth to be saved. In 2009 or 2008 when I first got my computer, I didn't realize how many different church denominations there really were. There's like 38,000 different church denominations. Protestant, not Catholicism or any other religion. Protestant Christian churches, 38,000 of them. Different types of beliefs in the Christian church. Um, but the truth of the matter is, Christianity came from Catholicism, as far as like all the Protestant churches that preach Christianity and preach about Jesus and all that. All those churches were developed and came and were born from the Catholic Church. One of the religions that was born from the Catholic Church is Episcopalians. They consider themselves Protestants, but they still do Catholic rituals. They still have their preacher, instead of their preacher being in a suit and tie, their preacher's wearing like a Catholic robe, like a pope would. And they still have their altar boys and all that. But it's a Protestant religion. It's um, a mixture of both Catholicism and Christianity. That's just one example. But it really triggers me when I see people talking about how we're living in the end times, how Jesus is going to come and rapture the church, how all these things are taking place, how they think that all these things, worldly events that are taking place, is due to some God or to some devil. They don't see it as just humans making good choices or bad choices. They think that there's something outside of themselves controlling things. And that's where I get triggered, because I know within myself, I'm not candy. Candy is just the vessel for the spirit that resides in me and that gives this vessel life. That's what I consider God. I don't consider God some being outside of myself. I consider God eternal energy. Eternal life is eternal energy that continually creates life. Um, but it isn't separate from the life that it creates. It's not separate from its creation. What separates this energy from creation is the ego. The ego that makes you believe that you are either A, more powerful than this energy that gives you life, or B, makes you feel less than this energy that gives you life. And that basically is the awareness of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The ego is the carnal mind. The ego would be considered the devil or Satan. Whereas, your spirit side of you is compassionate and giving and loving and caring, and whereas the fleshly side of you is more selfish and uh, doesn't have compassion for others, only does things to better itself. That's what the ego does. We are not either. We are not the ego, and we are not the spirit. We are basically just a fleshly vessel for this creative energy to have experience. That's what makes it eternal energy. It's immortal. We aren't immortal. We don't have some spirit inside of us that goes to some place called heaven or hell after this physical body dies. Or at least that's what I believe. I have no proof of that. But something inside of me tells me that. That's the truth. Something inside of me tells me that once this fleshly body, known as Candy, dies, there is nothing after that. What happens to the energy that gives this body life? Well, it continues on. But Candy is no longer a part of the equation. Candy was just a vessel that it utilized for the time that it needed to. Just like with all humans. We are all just vessels that this eternal energy utilizes to experience life. And that's why they say you only have one life, because Candy will never exist again. Once this body, known as Candy's dead and gone, that's it. There is no Candy exists no longer, except for in the minds of those that are still alive after I'm gone. Just like all the ones that I've loved before in the past that are dead and gone, they're dead and gone. I'm not going to see them in some afterlife. I'm not going to see them after I die. I'm not going to see them in some heaven or in some hell. They're gone. Their vessels are gone. And the only thing that remains from their vessels are the memories of those that they knew while they were alive. But once those people that knew them are dead and gone, there is no memory of them anymore. Or at least that's how I see it. But I guess I just ask myself, why do I get so triggered from people that can't see it? Because me, I'm an introvert. I choose to be alone. I choose to have a very small circle. I choose who I interact with and who I don't interact with. I choose who I give my time, effort, and energy to. I used to not. I used to just be friends with anybody and everybody. Anybody that gave me attention was my friend. But a lot of these friends weren't really my friends. They were out to not intentionally harm me, but eventually they did harm me because of the types of personalities that they were. They might not have harmed me physically, but they harmed me mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Um, but these were just lessons that I needed throughout my life. But because of all these lessons that I've learned in my 55 years of living here on Earth, I've chosen to become a hermit. I've chosen to limit who has access to me. I've chosen to be in charge of me. And because I'm in charge of me, I choose. Like I said, I choose. Nobody else chooses for me. Everything that I do in my life, right or wrong, is me choosing to do so. Just like every human knows right and wrong, even babies. I wouldn't say babies, but once you get to be a certain age and your parents are teaching you the difference between right and wrong, and then if a child tries to do something without their parents' knowledge, but then they get caught, they try to get out of it, whether it's crying or whether it's whatever, even small children know right and wrong. So I don't need some God outside of me to save me. I don't need, to blame some devil for all the wrong choices I made in life. You know, we do what we do in life and we learn the lessons we learn in life because that was our path that we were taking, in this life. We all came here to have different experiences, different journey, because we're all different vessels. But we're all inhabited by the one creator. That's how I see it. We all have the same energy inside of us. But what makes us different, what makes us appear to be different, appear to be separate, is the ego, the carnal mind. But when it really comes down to it, you have the same energy in you that I have in me. Um, your children, your grandchildren, your parents, your neighbors, your friends, your enemies. We all have the same eternal energy inside of us in these human vessels. But what makes these human vessels different and separate is the ego, the carnal mind, that energy that people give their energy to. It's all personal choice. But see, most people don't want to take responsibility for their choices in life. They want to blame some devil or they want to praise some God, But I truly believe if there was one God out there that was in charge of everything, why would he allow all the suffering to go on here on earth? Why would he allow his creation to starve? Why would he allow all these horrible and terrible things to happen to us if he truly existed? That's why I don't see God as some being outside of myself in control of things. Because if there is a being outside of us in control of things, well, I certainly wouldn't want to be worshiping this being and bowing down to this being that allows suffering to occur in this realm. But again, lots of research, lots of diving deep into oneself gives you the answers that you usually are seeking. Just like, why am I triggered by all these things? Probably the reason why I'm triggered is because I can't control it. I can't control others. And that disturbs my ego. And so then my ego gets triggered by things that it can't control. And so by me asking the question and sitting here and having this conversation, I'm getting the answers that I obviously need. So I thank you for sitting here and listening to me ramble on so I could figure out the things on my own. So now I realize that when I get triggered about certain things, it's probably more than likely because I can't control the situation. I can control myself, but I can't control what's going on outside of myself. I can't control anything that the government's doing. I can't control anything outside of my own personal realm, you know. I can control what food I put in my body. I can control what I choose to listen to or see, you know. I'm in charge of certain things and I'm in control of certain things. But as far as events that are outside of myself or outside of my reach, I have no control over those things. Is things going to change? Is there going to be a big reset? Is there going to be a big extinction level event that comes in my generation, in my daughter's generation, in my grandchildren's generation? I don't know. I don't know. But I do know this, that I'm trying to live my life on a day by day basis and not let fear take over and not let outside influences shake me and throw me off of the path that I'm currently on. Much love, everybody. Peace, love, hugs, nugs, all that good stuff. I'll just be sitting here. I did do a Harry Potter binge from Monday night, Tuesday night. No, it was Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night. Anyway, I watched 7 movies over the course of the last 3 or 4 days. Now I'm either gonna probably watch some Lord of the Rings or some Star Wars, but I'm more of a Lord of the Ring kind of fan than I was in Star Wars. I liked Star Wars in the 70s when I was a kid, when the original Star Wars came out before the trilogy, but once the trilogy came out, I didn't get into it because it was so hyped up, you know, and I'm not the type of person that likes to jump on bandwagons just because everybody else is, you know. I'm going to make my own choices, my own decisions. Always have, always will. The older I get, the more awake and aware of myself and my choices, you know, that happen to be. Um, but yeah, I don't hop on bandwagons. I don't follow trends. I don't do what's in, you know. I never have been, even back when I was a kid growing up. Just because it was stylish or trendy didn't mean that I did it, you know. I had my own style, my own energy vibe going on, you know what I mean? Anyways, y'all have a most blessed day, and if there's anything else I feel like I need to talk about or say, I'll come back on and I'll make another video. Until then, peace, love, hugs.